which was mainly done with AstroSat UVIT data, far UV to be precise. And um, yeah, so okay. So this will be roughly divided into three parts. Two projects I completed this year, and one part would be the last part would be the future work, which I'll do in my next year at ARIES. Yeah, so I'll start with this work. This is based on filaments. So we conducted a deep survey in far UV band of a filamentary structure, and this is submitted in ABJ, and we got a review last month. So about to finish it. Um, so, filaments are one of the components of the cosmic web, and it is actually the most visually dominant component in the cosmic web. It is a channel for galaxies to flow from underdense environment to clusters. Um, and sorry, ye- okay. So, this is where the UVIT observation was conducted, and this pink and green line are the line of sight of UVIT observation. This square portion is zoomed in here, and the green dots here are one of the filaments that we targeted. Uh, we identified filament using this catalog, this work by Temple 2014. So this work is based off SDSS data, and in which they use BISIS algorithm, which so in which you assume galaxies to be aligned along cylinders, and you make small cylinders and try to find the inclination of next cylinder. And if it lies within a limit, you keep on connecting subsequent galaxies. Um, yeah. So okay. So this is the sky map. The right ascension and declination are converted in a supergalactic coordinates, and these squares are where UVIT observation was taken. We target four filaments, and these lines represents the filament spine. Filament spine is Filament spine is the region where the galaxy density inside the filament is highest. I have zoomed in. Okay. So these, my UVIT field of view is zoomed in here. These crosses are the galaxies that were detected with FUV, and the blue crosses are the galaxies that were detected, and red ones are the galaxies which were observed yet not detected. So when I look at where these galaxies, yeah. So So all these galaxies lie in the same field of view. So they were all observed, each frame was observed for 7 kiloseconds. So once after all the data reduction, so these are the galaxies that I detect with um, threshold of greater than 3 sigma. And but the remaining galaxies were in the field of view, but they were not detected with a significant SNR in the survey. And right. So okay, 3 sigma. Okay, undetected. I see. Right. Okay. So so this raises a question: why some of them were detected while the others were not detected in our survey. So we looked at where these galaxies are placed. Uh, okay. So this histogram here, the x-axis tells us the distance of each galaxy from the filament spine, which is where the density is highest. So I highlight that most of the galaxies that we detect are beyond 0.4 megaparsec from the filament spine. And when we look at the star forming properties of these galaxies, the blue one, the G minus R color for them is bluer, and the galaxies which were undetected have a redder color, which Yeah, which tells that the star formation rate of the galaxies in the outer part of the filament is higher than the galaxies present in the inner region. And this is BPT diagram. It is used to classify purely star forming and galaxies with AGN host. So most of the galaxies that were detected, although it's sort of a mixed plot, but most of the galaxies that were detected were star forming, although there are a few outliers. And this plot here, it shows the morphology of galaxies. The galaxies that were detected were disky, spirals and irregular, whereas the undetected galaxies were mostly the early types, elliptical and lenticular. Right. So that's when you take a sample of, say, lakh, 1 lakh galaxies or something, a random sample, and you just do their color versus absolute magnitude, and you see that there would be a bimodal distribution. So and it's a natural. I mean the galaxies are like that. So so there are two peaks in this. Yeah. Yeah, because we have all kinds of galaxies. Some are star forming, some are star formation quenched. So they group together in a color magnitude diagram. Actually, there are three groups. I've divided them by lines. So this is the blue cloud. There are names for it. This is the place where galaxies are in transition. They are not purely dead or purely star forming. They are transitioning either from red, and this part is the red sequence. And also when we in terms of this part is mostly dominated by disc like spirals and irregulars, and whereas here we'll find more lenticulars and elliptical galaxies. So yeah, so there are three regions in this plot. No, the color we can see from here, the color G minus R, blue color. Yeah. Okay. So for the galaxies which were not detected, we did force photometry on them, and then do aperture corrections. So I'm pressing something wrong. Yeah. So this is a specific star formation, which is just SFR divided by the stellar mass. And SFR calculated using FUV luminosity, whereas stellar mass for these galaxies. And the detected galaxies are plotted with solid circles, and undetected, we did force photometry on them. So as expected, their FUV, the higher you go on this scale, you have more um, rapidly star forming galaxies. So, as expected, the galaxies that were undetected had lower star formation rate than the galaxies that were detected. And this here is for the distance from the filament spine. So, as the distance, most of the galaxies with high star formation rate lie on the outer edges of the filament. Um, yeah, right. No, I'm not detecting random galaxies. Random in the sense, right? Just filaments. Yeah, lying in the filament. Yeah, right. Right. Actually, the second part of my talk is precisely about this. It's about where the UV emission comes from in elliptical galaxies. So I'll talk specifically on elliptical galaxies. Right. Um, in this study, I just wanted to see how filament. Yeah. Right. Uh-huh. Uh, yeah, but I'll just say that I have looked at a few galaxies hosting AGN, their FUV morphology. There's there's no general consensus that there would be a FUV hole in the center, or I have got FUV emission from them as well, and I've seen galaxies with FUV holes. Right. Yeah. So yeah. So when compared with, I should have labeled this. Sorry. Um, So then I also wanted to see whether the properties of filament galaxies are any different from those present in clusters. So I made a sample of cluster galaxies that I have shown with this orange, histogram, and the blue ones are the filament galaxies, and they all lie in the same stellar mass bin. I have specifically taken massive galaxies here. Um, so, I did few statistical tests on the sample to find whether these two belong to a same population, or whether there's a difference in specific star formation for the two galaxies belonging to different environments. So, what I find is these two populations come from different parent population, which tells us that the star formation quenching in cluster galaxies is more than the filaments. It's a small sample size, 18 galaxies. Yeah, yes. So I did a few more things that I made sure that the cluster and filament galaxies, they lie in the same redshift bin and stellar mass. Yeah. Yes. KS. KS test. Yeah, I could also do AD. Yeah. Yes. Right now I've done this KS test. No. So yes, it's lower than the null hypothesis. That is 0.05. Mm, yeah. So here I compare the optical versus FUV morphology of these filament galaxies. The background is the gray images are FUV, and optical contours are plotted in blue. And the red crosses are the centroid of optical contour, and the blue is for FUV. So mostly I find that the alignment of FUV and optical, they lie together. There's no difference. That means that in filament, there is no, it is not, the environmental quenching processes are not as strong as in clusters. In cluster galaxies, sometimes you see an misalignment of quite some degrees. Um, Also, for some galaxies, I see that the FUV emission is leaking out of their optical contours, which signifies some gas accretion activity in filaments. And also, these galaxies, they lie in the outer part of the filament, and galaxies like this are were mainly present around like zero point 0.6 or some megaparsec. So that means that there is some gas accretion activity going on in the filament, and these galaxies are located in the outer region of it. Um, yeah. So coming to your question, this galaxy here, this has a very like this is AGN, and there was some sort of FUV hole in this galaxy for sure, but I mean there are some other samples which do not show that, so there's no common consensus. Mm, right. This was the conclusion. Um, yeah. Okay. So the second part is about the UV emission in early type galaxies, mostly ellipticals and lenticulars. So this is submitted in MNRS last month. Uh, uh, okay. So we know that galaxies comes in different shape and sizes. Uh, 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 so the ellipticals and lenticular galaxies here, we call them as early type galaxies, and whereas the spirals are the and irregular galaxies are the late types. We commonly we know that the elliptical galaxies are going to be more luminous, less star forming. Um, I'm saying the opposite thing. So yeah, late type galaxies have lower luminosity, more gas rich, and blue in color than early type galaxies. So despite this, so early type galaxies are mostly, we know that they are dominated with purely old stellar population. Uh, but so if they are old, if they are dominated with evolved stellar population, they should be faint in UV. But uh, uh, we have seen that lately, we have detected a number of galaxies in UV, using galaxy observation. We have detected a number of galaxies emitting in UV. And what we say is the emission, the UV emission in this galaxy is a result of UV upturn. UV upturn is just the inflection in of flux in the UV side of your uh, spectral energy distribution, and this comes from the presence of extreme horizontal branch star in the galaxy. This is what it is assumed that for early type galaxies, the UV emission is coming from extreme horizontal branch stars. Uh, but we have detected UV emission up to redshift 0.5, which is and at that redshift, uh, the presence of extreme horizontal branch is highly unlikely. And also, for the detected elliptical galaxies, one-third of them have blue optical colors than the strongest UV upturned galaxies. And this sort of tells us that there may be some recent star formation going on in these galaxies. We are looking at the other side of spectrum. We are looking at the most massive and red elliptical galaxies, and we want to detect such galaxies in UV, and we want to see where this UV emission is coming from those massive red galaxies. Um, right. So for that, we create a sample. We scan about hundreds of UVIT field of views, and for morphology, we refer to Galaxy Zoo catalog. And we calculate CAS parameter and Cersec index for UV and decals R-band images. What our idea is that if UV and optical emission are coming from the same stellar population, then the CAS parameters, which uh, which which tells us about the concentration, asymmetry, and clumpiness in images, they should match. The optical parameters and UV parameters should match. So we start with a sample of 32 early type galaxies. We apply some cut on the SNR per pixel. 20, the radius at which your light concentration is 20%. It was taken greater than 2 pixels. Uh, so some background on CAS. Total light. It's a ratio. Uh, the radius. Yes. Yeah. I've shown some galaxies from a sample. Yeah. They are not. It's these. Yeah. So you calculate. No. Okay. Uh, so it's a movement. So you calculate the. The- Yeah, there are different kind of photometry that you can do to find the total light of galaxies, prawn, petrosium, anything. Yes, the radius at which I mean, if it does not matter. In this cases, we take a yes, it's a flexible aperture. Yeah, it's not fixed. Yeah. So, yeah. So I'll just highlight what is typical value of CAS parameters for galaxies of different morphology. For example, the elliptical galaxy, and these are all parameters in optical band. So suppose this is for elliptical galaxies, what we see is it has higher concentration. That's fine because most of the light is concentrated in the center. Asymmetry is quite low. That is expected because there are no star forming regions inside it, and there is zero clumpiness. That is, its profile is very smooth. It is what we see. Um, and whereas for the late type galaxies, the concentration is slight lower. Asymmetry begins to increase, and clumpiness also begins to increase because there's star formation going on. Yeah. So these are all the optical parameters, and these are very, I mean, you can reproduce it anytime. There's one more check that we do, that's for Sirsic function. It's a mathematical formula and it's quite flexible. You can fit it over bar, bulges, uh, and specifically for elliptical galaxies, we can do one component fitting over it. And this Sirsic index here can tell us about the light concentration of galaxy. Commonly, it is, I mean, we know that if Sirsic index is greater than 4, then your light is more centrally concentrated, and for Sirsic index less than 2, we have disky light profile. Over here, I show some of the examples of uh, optical profile, and black line is where I fit the Sirsic function over it, and blue ones are FUV isophores. For some, I was able to fit a Sirsic function because they were relatively smoother, but most of my sample had this sort of profile for which I could not fit a Sirsic function. Red is R band isophores. Uh, blue is FUV isophores, and black is just this function fitted over the this is surface brightness, and this is radius. I just want to highlight the not so smooth isophotral distribution in FUV and compared to optical isophores for the same galaxy. No, no. That means we are seeing some clumpiness, which should not be there if, I mean, that's the last one. Uh, okay, some comparison with Galax. Major 2018, uh, Major 2018 did a similar study. They compared Galax FUV observation with HST, and these were the results that they found. Okay, for early type and late type galaxies. So the contrast that we see is like the asymmetry for elliptical galaxies. They reported it to be a bit higher, but the smoothness was low. And this is for late type galaxies. This is something that we know, but this was something new. I mean, we were not supposed to see asymmetry in elliptical galaxies for FUV because they were dominated with old stellar population. But this study had some drawbacks because they were comparing HST and Galax. Their resolution is quite different. So we don't know if they're comparing the same region. Uh, but for us, we have used UVIT and decals observation. They have comparatively similar resolution, and also UVIT is more sensitive than galaxy. For example, I've shown here, these are two galaxies from my sample. This is galaxy image, UVIT, and decal. So in the UVIT images, we can figure out some sort of substructure in the UV emission of elliptical galaxies, which was completely missing in galaxy. And if I compare the SNR for my sample versus galaxy, I see that, I mean, there's substantial difference in the SNR as well. Okay, so these are my results. Y-axis is concentration in okay, I'm sorry, I missed one point. I was telling you about, since the resolution is different, we don't know whether we are calculating CES from the same region. So we made sure that we do our CES parameter estimation in the same region for FUV and decals. And these are the results. This is FUV concentration, optical concentration, FUV asymmetry, optical asymmetry, FUV clumpiness versus optical clumpiness. These crosses are where we found some signs of interaction. Yeah, and mostly the concentration was roughly same for UV and optical. But if we look at the asymmetry, the FUV asymmetry was quite higher than the optical asymmetry, about 10 times, and same with the clumpiness parameter. On the plots over here, we plot log FUV parameter versus optical parameter. The first one is for concentration, C FUV by C concentration, A FUV by asymmetry of UV versus optical, and asymmetry of, smoothness of UV versus optical. And we have NUV minus R color here and stellar mass here. Mostly I want you to look at the region over here. So here, these early type galaxies are really red color. Also, they are massive. Even for these systems, the ratio of UV versus optical parameters are quite high, like greater than 10. I mean, typically what we see is the asymmetry in FUV 10 times greater than optical, and same for clumpiness. So what we conclude is that regardless of any color or stellar mass, the asymmetry and clumpiness of elliptical galaxies in FUV is quite higher than optical. And this sort of signifies ongoing star formation, because we know that star formation could be patchy and asymmetry. Same result for Sersic index. The FUV isopods of elliptical galaxies were flatter than the optical ones, and this was regardless of stellar mass or NUV minus R color. Yeah, and I would highlight that some of the galaxies in our sample were UV upturned galaxies, which are said to be purely formed by evolved samples, but even they had I mean, they also had their FUV parameters higher than optical. Yeah. So with this, so these are the two works that I completed last year. Yeah, these are some other things that I've done in last year. Now, this is a work that I've co-authored. It is submitted in AppJS, and I conducted two observations at DOT, meetings that were attended by me. In the last part, I'll just briefly go through what I'm planning to do in the next year. So this was a proposal written in the last cycle by me. It got accepted, and I was allotted some time last weekend, but due to some technical issues, I could not observe. Maybe I'll try and yes. It will. I just did observation. I mean, I could not do last. Yeah. Okay. So extreme emission line galaxies in the local universe are quite rare, but they are very star forming, and they have very high, if you look at their spectra, they have extreme emission lines, and the equivalent width of these galaxies are, I mean, greater than 500 angstrom or so. and these galaxies are low in stellar mass. And the properties of these galaxies represent the high redshift galaxies, uh, um, yeah, responsible for the cosmic reionization. So studying these galaxies are interesting because if we study them, we would know about the properties of high redshift galaxies. One of the things that is puzzling about these galaxies, what is the source of star formation in these galaxies? Yeah, could they be an underlying AGN, or the galaxy is in an early starburst phase, or there's galaxy interaction? So for that, I selected a small sample of 4 galaxies from J plus survey, and I wanted to do optical spectroscopy over these clumps to know about the nature, if there is some underlying AGN present, or and usually these galaxies are quite compact. I mean, they just have one blob, but these galaxies were sort of an outlier, having 2 knots in their system. So yeah, so my aim was to do optical spectroscopy and see their spectral properties, which I'll do maybe in the next cycle. Uh, right. So most of my interest revolves around studying the evolution of galaxies in different large scale structures. So this work that I want to do is with void galaxies, and specifically in the high stellar mass range. So as the mass of a galaxy increases, there are various quenching mechanisms that are activated, such as bar quenching, AGN quenching. Quenching is just slowing down of star formation. Um, as we see here, that as the frequency of bar in galaxy, the specific star formation, it starts to decrease, and the same is true for active galaxies. As the AGN, the AGN also tends to quench the star formation. So mostly you would imagine a massive galaxy to be quenched, but um, there are outliers, and these outliers are mostly products of uh, major merger interactions, which are quite uncommon in voids. I mean, in voids, you would not expect 2 galaxies to go through a major merger interaction. So, what I do is I scan STS's data, and I detect void galaxies in the STS's sample. Um Mostly, I'm interested in most isolated galaxies which are away from even the boundaries of void. So this parameter here is d by RV. D is distance of a galaxy from a void center, and RV is the radius of void. So I've taken a cutoff of 0.7 to be away from the boundary of void. And for these galaxies, I just do a specific star formation versus stellar mass plot. And we again start to see this bimodality, which we were seeing with G minus R versus MR. So yeah, in here, I'm interested in the massive galaxies. So mostly I would expect these galaxies to be quenched, especially in void. So I'm seeing this star forming sample here. So my aim is to pick these galaxy out and do some morphological analysis and some other things. And also, I am trying to find out these counterparts in TNG 300 simulation. So with the aim to see where these galaxies are coming from, whether these galaxies are presently in the void, but they have come from some other large scale structure. Yeah, and also the peculiar galaxies from this sample would be observed with dots. That's so I'll talk about bar quenching first. Bar gives rise to a non-axisymmetric potential. So that means that the gas in the system, in the galaxy, it tends to, yeah, in the bar, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah, there are stars, but what type of stars also matter. Um, so what happens in bar is, as the gas and So as the gas and stellar particle passes through, passes inside the bar, there is some sort of torque and some sort of dynamical friction that gets activated, which rises the temperature of the interstellar medium. And so there could be star, but they are mostly evolved. But okay, I would clarify that this is from Zhang 21, and they mostly looked at, these are, how do I define it? These are all redshift zero. These are not high redshift galaxies. These are local galaxies. Yeah. So what happens with Asian quenching is, there's a redistribution of energy. There are outflows, and then it gets redeposited in the ISM. So what happens there is, the temperature of ISM sort of increases, the energy gets redistributed, and it lowers the rate of star formation in the galaxy, because you want cold, dense molecular cloud to form stars. So there, yes, yes. And having said that, I'll say that there are always cases where this is, there's Asian positive feedback also. So yeah, we can't generalize. In fact, I did, and for bar quenching, there was a paper that I did in which I found a blue bar. So it was sort of, yes, so that's positive feedback. Um, Gravitational heating is just when your stellar mass rises. When it increases, it attracts the satellite galaxies inside the halo, and like while interacting with the ISM or the circumgalactic medium, it would there would be some. No, no. This is a very general pattern. Yeah. Yes. Yes. That's a good question, and that is something that I would like to see, because I can tell you about filament that we have seen some evolution with redshift in filament itself. With respect to its length and radius. So there are chances that the redshift would definitely affect the properties of filament galaxies. So, but it's quite difficult to do with observation simulations. Would be rather easy. I work with local galaxies. Okay. So TNG 300 simulation, or actually there are three types: TNG 50, 100, and 300. And this 100, 50, and 300 just tells us about the box size. So TNG 50 is going to have more resolution. They have simulated the box size of the simulation is just 50 megaparsecs. It's a cube of 50 megaparsec length. TNG 50, TNG 100 has more. So TNG 50 has lesser halos but more resolution. That means the galaxy sample will be low, but the resolution is high. TNG 100 is intermediate. TNG 300 is box of 300 megaparsec. It's a cube, and then you have your halos, and like and then you can hydrodynamical simulation. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. How will I do? So they have this. I am not simulating galaxies. It's there. I'm searching for galaxies in the simulation. Um, no, no. So this is a group, Dylan. It's Heidelberg, Harvard. They have this whole. It's a big collaboration. So like we were in talk with them, but it's there. It's there. Everything is there. Okay, that's nice. Yes, I mean the spin of even the spin alignment of galaxies, they tend to affect the properties of galaxies, and there's a lot that is being done with simulations in this regard. So yeah, but I am not considering the effect of spin here. So yes, it gets affected. Cluster I got from Galaxy, and most of them are like AIS, MIS, TIS, and mostly AIS. For filament, yes, the exposure time would matter. I mean, but like these are all deep images. Like it's 7 kilosecond each field. Um, so you'll have galaxies that are not detected at all. And I mean, what comparison with filament and completeness. So, but there's one thing that I am considering the same stellar mass being. So, I mean, that would equate to luminosity and stuff. No, that's completeness. I think it could be around 20. The 3 sigma detection, 3 sigma detection limit would be around 24, 25 magnitude. ACD lab. Error, error in magnitude. So CCD, how could CCD lab give error? I mean, error is when you do photometry and things. That's you see that I am detecting galaxies at 3 sigma. It is quite high than the detection limit. So we don't have to worry about that. Error, error. I I think I what is 3 sigma would not be 0.2. It will be less for F. I mean for F. And also, I mean 99%. And that's the threshold we have detection above it.